Hello and welcome to the Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Caw and I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sport's very own Michael Gannon and Fraser Wilson. Guys, how are you both?
Oh, good chaps. How are we? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is at this point in time. I'm not entirely sure, but all the best anyway.
They all merge into one at some point. Fraser, how's it going?
Not bad, mate. Nice, bright, sunny, freezing cold day. Can't complain.
I think the best place for us to maybe start is obviously the Scottish Cup game against St Mirren at the weekend a few days ago now, but I know you were there, Mick. I think on paper it looked like a bit of a banana skin for Celtic. St Mirren have been brilliant this season. In my opinion, Stephen Robinson maybe even manager of the year. But Celtic got there, they got through, clean sheet again.
They did. I mean, it was one of those ones that I always think the old Ed Cantona line about the seagulls and the trawlers and all that stuff, and because I think it's going to be lunchtime. I think a lot of seagulls floating around Paisley thinking this was going to be another really difficult afternoon for Celtic, but it turned out to be quite an impressive performance and result, actually. The first half, I wouldn't say impressive as a word I use the first half. I think St Mirren really kind of put it on to Celtic. They pinned them back, they pressed them fairly hard at the pitch, won a lot of ball, and were shelling it into the box. And I think they had about 7 corners in the first half alone, which is incredible against Celtic, and it caused a lot of problems. But I think, it's one of a few chances as well. I mean, Alex Gogic, hit the bar, overhead kick that was saved by Joe Hart. But I think in the most part, Celtic stood up to that kind of aerial bombardment. I think the two centre-halves, Welsh and Scales, did really well with that kind of aerial fight. I think Joe Hart was excellent, dealing with cross balls. He punched a lot of times, but he was punching it to safety and taking a lot of pressure off his defence. And then the second half, Celtic kind of came out a bit more firing and a bit more composed. They got a second goal, which was, the first goal was very important. But they got the second goal, and that gave a bit more kind of a cushion. And I think they saw the game out pretty well. Someone again, a couple of chances, Kelty header. Was a big moment in the game at 1-0, or 2-0, sorry. But I think they were quite comfortable, and I think it was a kind of one of these morale boosting kind of wins. It was a bit less stressful than it's been in recent weeks. Aberdeen, Hibs, even Ross County. I think it was more composed and a bit more kind of structured in the second half, and a bit more like them. So it was an important win because I think the pressure was really on Sunday. If that had gone wrong, all hell would have broken loose, I think. Yeah. If a trophy had gone slipped through their grasp. So it keeps the show on the road. And all of a sudden, Celtic are now 8 wins and a draw out of 9. 6 clean sheets, only 3 goals conceded. And you're starting to think, a lot of fuss in the last few weeks, and rightly so. And listen, some of us have been causing a bit of fuss about it because the performances haven't been great. And your performances, if they're not great, eventually the results will catch up. And there's still a wee bit of that kind of in the back of your mind that it's still not all rosy. But they've kind of managed a way to get through this patch of fixtures relatively intact. I mean, tricky games at Pittodrie, Easter Road, and at the Smisa. That's a difficult run of games. And they've kind of got through it just about. And there's some guys coming back from injury. So I think there's a lot more to be positive about the Celtic at this point in time, even compared to kind of this time last week when it was hair and fire a wee bit. But there's still some concerns in there as well. But it's all to play for, isn't it?
I think we'll definitely talk about the kind of overarching theme of the form at the minute. I mean, crisis talk, I don't even think is an over-exaggeration. That, some fans and pundits have called it a crisis that Celtic have been in. But before we do that, Fraser, Mick mentioned Joe Hart there, and I think Joe Hart has been absolutely brilliant for Celtic recently. He's taken a lot of stick generally over the last few months. I think a lot of fans have said that Celtic need a new goalie, but Aberdeen, Hibs, and again at the weekend, particularly the Gogic overhead kick, Hart has been absolutely brilliant for Celtic.
It's been great. Can I just start by saying, Mick, well done on being the first person in about, the 30-odd years since Cantona came out with that quote that's made a decent fist of explaining what I actually meant. So thanks for that, mate. Almost got my head around it.
I'm a deep thinker, Fraz. Like French philosophy and all that stuff, that was always my forte.
Well, thank goodness it's been keeping me up for 26, 27 years. I might sleep well tonight. I
read French philosophy and Jack Reacher. That's my favourites.
Joe Hart, honestly, Daniel, I'm glad you mentioned it because I think there's been a narrative that's grown around Joe Hart that is finished, is become a liability, and it's just so wrong. I honestly think Celtic need to be careful here with Joe Hart, that they don't make the same mistake that they made 3 or 4 years ago with Craig Gordon. When he was allowed to leave, walk out the door, thinking that his best years were behind him, and he went on to prove that was far from the case. And in his place came completely untested Vasilis Barkas, and we all know how that one ended. You could say it went a long way to costing them the title when Rangers won it 3 years ago. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but look, there's this perception that Hart's done, and it's ludicrous. Yes, there's the odd flap it across. Show me a goalkeeper that doesn't. I've seen Jack Buntland do it twice in the last couple of weeks, and I've seen him against Aberdeen in there. But Joe Hart, look, he's 36, be 37 in the summer. He looks in peak fitness to me. As you rightly said, still pulling off massive saves. I remember an injury time against Ross County when they won 1-0. There was a couple against Aberdeen, which finished 1-1. A couple against Hibs last week, 2-1 win. And again, at a key moment in a 1-0 win over St Mirren. These are all massive moments. And that's what good goalkeepers do for big clubs. Not to forget the saves he made against Rangers in the New Year game as well. So he's got a massive contribution in the last month or two for Celtic as they're starting to turn the corner. I mean, beyond that, you've got a consummate professional. I think Rodgers has stated rightly that he's a huge influence in the dressing room. He's calm in the eye of the storm in the big games. I don't want to overplay that Joe Hart doesn't have a few flaws, but at this level, what Celtic need right now, I think, is ideal. And if they're going into a new season next year, if he's allowed to leave, you've got Scott Bain and Benji Siegrist. I don't know what's happened to Benji Siegrist. He was a great goalkeeper for Dundee United a couple of years ago. But if you're going in with those two and a new guy is expected to hit the ground running, then it's a massive gamble. For me, I think Hart, if he was up for it, deserves another year. So you've got a steady Eddie there and let him and a new guy, because you've got to plan for the future, of course you have, but let him and a new guy fight it out for the number one shot, because Hart has proved in the last couple of months that he's still a huge contributor to Celtic.
And he's only, I mean, he turns 37 in April.
Yeah.
For a goalie, he's not particularly old. I mean,
there's 3 or 4 older than him in the Premiership, isn't it? Is it? It doesn't matter about the age, really. He's fit. He looks fit, and you just know he's an ultimate professional and looks after himself. And I hope I'm not teeing him up for a massive fall in his next game, but I've been hugely impressed with him of late.
And see, Fraser mentioned Butland there, Mick. Butland, there's been England talk this week. Apparently, he is on Gareth Southgate's radar. And if he is, I get he's 30, and as we say, Joe Hart's 37. But if he's on the radar, I mean, Joe Hart is every bit as good as Butland, I would suggest, and he's got a lot more experience. I don't know, it seems a bit odd, that one.
Listen, England could do it like, I don't care what England do, to be honest with you. I mean,
excellent point.
To be honest, I'm no fussed about what England pick, who their number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 45 is. Honestly, I mean, Joe Hart, I think, I agree with Fraser, he's a little bit of a kind of undervalued at times. It was a guy with 75 caps for England, won titles with Man City. He's got one of the records for clean sheets in the English Premier League, won the Golden Gloves or something like that for 3 or 4 years. He's a top operator. I mean, you can tell he's a big presence in that dressing room as well, which is, I think, at this point in time, is even more important than the saves. Because this is a Celtic squad that's quite young, quite inexperienced, losing a lot of key men to injury. I think Joe Hart and Callum McGregor are dragging this side at times through this kind of tough period.
Just on that, Mick, as well.
More important than any save.
Sorry, Mick, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but sorry. But just even behind that back four, I mean, Ralston...
What back four?
Exactly.
But pretty much different back four every week. And that's, as a goalkeeper, that's a nightmare. Because you need to have...
I'm glad you mentioned that. Exactly.
You need to have this relationship, especially your centre-halves. And Celtic have not had it this season. And it's the last few games it's been Welsh and Scales. But at the start of the season, if you said back in August that Celtic would get to February and their back four would be Ralston, Welsh, Scales, and Bernaby, you'd get laughed out of town. I mean, folk knew that. What? I mean, that's no offence to those guys, because that's not what people would expect. Mm-hmm. I actually think Anthony Ralston coming in is a good thing for Celtic at the moment. I think I know it's a bad injury for Arthur Johnson, but he was looking a bit out of sorts, I think, and Ralston, I think, is actually a better option right now. Get a run of games. You know what you get from Anthony Ralston as well. Hard as nails. I mean, his challenge at Easter Road in the last minute last week that went eventually to a penalty kick and the winner. But for the goalkeeper, he's playing behind a back four. It's chop and change every week. He doesn't know what's in front of him. Some of the guys that have played have been a wee bit shaky at times. You look at Navarowski up at Petodry, no great. Lagerbielke at times been a bit scary for backline. So it's been difficult for him. But I think he's the one. He's been the glue that's going to hold it together. So same with 6 clean sheets in 9 games, having not played particularly well, and had some scary moments, and he's a big part of that run of games.
Just on the back four before we move on as well, Bernaby, Mick, I know you were at the game. I think a lot of Celtic fans, and do you know what, me included, probably wrote him off and thought, do you know what, this guy would probably be gone in January, at the end of the season at the latest. But I thought he was really good against Hibs. You know, okay against St Mirren. Does he have a future, do you think?
No.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on.
Listen, I think he's did a good couple of decent games, right? I don't think he's a fullback. I don't think he can defend well enough for Celtic. I think he's a wee bit about him going forward. He's quite, I mean, he was involved in the goals at the weekend. I don't think he's perhaps a complete kind of lost cause, but I just don't see him having the quality overall. He's certainly no Greg Taylor. He's been missed through injury. I don't see him as a long-term solution, and I suspect Brendan Rodgers doesn't see him as a long-term solution either. I think he's getting a tune at him just now, but it's I wouldn't expect him to be part of the grand plan going forward. And
Fraser, it was also a wee bit of a surprise to see Celtic basically going with 2 up top, with Adam Ider coming in and Kyogo just off him. I think, is that fair to say? I mean, I was thought Kyogo, he loves playing in the shoulder and last defender, but you know, he's a top player. He can probably play both positions, really.
He's certainly the kind of centre of a argument debate right now, isn't he, about what's happening with him? There's no doubt, given the last 2 seasons, Kyogo is at his best when he's in the box, playing off the shoulder or darting. The movement he's got in the box was the key behind probably half his goals last season, his lightning quick movement in the box. But the interesting one on Sunday was his goal, because when Callum McGregor starts the move, Kyogo's midway inside his own half. Mm-hmm. And as it progresses down the left-hand side, he can see at times he's run perfectly to do enough to shake off St Mirren midfield, but just to arrive at the perfect time to connect first time with the cutback. And it was a decent wee finish. Still not convinced he's as dangerous playing deeper. Adam Ida's obviously a big, strong guy that you'd probably think would lead a line, but Kyogo has to be in the box, terrorising defences to be at his best for me.
What do you think, Mick? Is the 2 up top here to stay?
Well, it wasn't really 2 up top, to be honest. It was more like Kyogo was a number 10, to be honest with you. It wasn't really a 2 up top. It was more like Kyogo was deeper in that kind of 10 role. Mm-hmm. A slightly different kind of formation. That actually tended to sometimes become the same old kind of formation of 4-3-3, because it was almost like Celtic were, or even like a 4-2-3-1 or something like that, 4-2-3-2-1-1-1, 5-2-3-6-8, I don't know. But it wasn't quite. It was, I think, because St Mirren are direct. I think the midfield wasn't particularly that. He didn't need an extra body in there. That's why Bernardo didn't start. I think Kyogo in there instead as a kind of 10 just off the shoulder. I think he can play in there, no bother. He played left wing in Japan until he was converted into a striker by Ange Postecoglou. I agree with Fraser, but I think he is best on the shoulder. But the way Celtic play, you're not going to get the best out of them, because the Celtic aren't playing that the way they played previously. I know the manager's saying they're not playing that differently, but they're not getting to the byline as much. And it's not so much the fact that the wingers are kind of inverted and tend to cut inside rather than hit the byline. They don't tend to get the fullbacks. I think I've lacked a wee bit of quality in terms of being part of the build-up play. And in previous years, the fullbacks were coming inside and be part of, and taking over the roles that are now occupied by the likes of O'Reilly and Bernardo, and that would allow them to push onto the byline, cut back. A lot of goals scored, Matt O'Reilly hitting the byline, cutting it back, and Hatate and all that stuff. So it's wee changes like that are affecting it, and Celtic aren't getting those balls across the face like they used to. A different way of playing, and it's kind of not getting Kyogo's main attributes to put to use. So there has to be a bit of thinking involved. I think Adamida is a kind of one of these kind of, I don't know, agent of chaos type strikers, isn't he? He gets in there and he's throwing his weight about, and his movement's good. He's quite quick for a big fella, bit like myself. Quick to the fridge. But he's a big quick fella. He's a decent enough touch. A good touch for a big man, as they would say, wouldn't they? As the old cliche goes. But so I can see why he's trying to mix things up a wee bit, and it has helped things. Kyogo, but until Celtic change kind of the way they approach their attacking phase, I think say fullbacks it's not a Josip Juranovic or a Mikael Lustig or a Kieran Tierney or even when Greg Taylor does it on the other side, they're not hitting the byline as much as they would have done previous campaigns. So therefore, you might have to find a different way to find the best out of Kyogo. But he's still allowed to pop up. He still scored 12 goals this season. He scored 4 in his last 8, 9. So he's still getting ticking away. And he's had big moments. When you look at the Rangers games, a couple of big moments this season. So he's just not maybe getting the prolific. But Celtic aren't getting those kind of 3 and 4 goal wins at the moment. I mean, when they score a couple of goals early and then they score a couple of goals late, and it's your stats are getting bumped up. Do you know what I mean? So it's tricky for him. But that's why Rodgers has paid the big bucks to work it out. And
at the end of the day, Fraser, as Mick touched on earlier, 8 wins out of the last 9 games now for Celtic in the quarter-final of the Cup. That run includes a win over Rangers, of course. I get that it's not the kind of free-flowing football that a lot of fans would want, but I feel like, and I might get a bit of stick for this, but I feel like a lot of Celtic fans need to chill out a wee bit. I mean, it's not, every season can't be just, a procession to another treble. You're going to have rocky patches. And, I think Celtic are coming through it quite well now. People like Hatate and Carter Vickers to come back too.
Yeah. I want things to be interesting. Certainly interesting. I mean, if this is a crisis, what word would you use for what they're going through 3 years ago? It's a crisis that at least 40 other SPFL clubs wouldn't mind be having right now. You're right. I think maybe it comes from the fact that a lot of these games have been on a knife edge going into injury time, kind of nervous at the end. That was certainly the case the last time I saw them against Ross County. It was a bag of Parkhead was a bag of jaggies going into injury time. But no, those stats alone, was it 8 wins and 9? You say, including a second goal for win for 2 games,
just 3 conceded as well.
Yeah, defensively, despite what Mick correctly said, their flung together back line, they're looking pretty solid. The stats bear that out. I don't really know what else you could ask for. Blowing teams away in the first half, that's not exciting, is it? Maybe that's what Celtic fans want, maybe that's what the Hearts want, but for us, nah, we want things to be a bit more interesting, don't we, Mick? And certainly teeing up to be an extremely exciting end to the season.
I can assure you, Fraz, when it's an 8 o'clock kick-off at Easter Road and there's a 92nd minute penalty kick winner on deadline after VARs and all the rest of it, it's about 5 past midnight when there wasn't the balls in the spot. I can assure you, excitement is the last thing I need.
I was sitting watching that one in the house and I thought it was brilliant.
This is why I look like this. I'm actually only 23. But listen,
it's a fair point.
But Celtic are a strange situation this season. I mean, there's been a kind of grumpiness around the place from the start, really. I know there was this kind of section that didn't particularly welcome Brendan Rodgers back to Celtic. I mean, they jumped on him fairly quickly. And also getting out the cup that came out was a blow early on. St Johnstone draw at home and the people jumped on him a wee bit. Then you had the Green Brigade disputes with the club over certain things. Then you have, I mean, the Liel Abada situation kicking in. And on the back up, you're losing Carter Vickers, Hatate, Johnson, Abada for a period of injury. I mean, Celtic have had Greg Taylor now, plenty of problems all season. And it doesn't seem the happiest of places this year. Fans of rival clubs are thinking, what are they moaning about here? But Celtic fans have had a high bar for a while, and they've not quite hit it this year. They've seen an 8-point lead. I mean, a start basically in the league. I mean, the league was written off as done back in September, October. that league's gone. Rangers, by the way, I don't think are any great shakes. And the funny thing is, Rangers' our results are not entirely different to Celtic's results. I mean, they're kind of biting and scratching away. They're not particularly free-flowing or all the rest of it. They're coming from a lower base than Celtic's treble-winning team last year, which is why the narrative is that Rangers are flying and Celtic are in a crisis. Whereas in the reality is it's itchy-peachy. But that league's gone, which has created this attention. But they could... So they could do hitting the I mean, I'm talking about in the stands, not stuff. The reset button could get pressed now. About 13 games to go plus a cup. There really needs to be a reset button pressed, and right, okay, there's a fight now. It starts here. Mm-hmm. But where that tension and anxiety goes, I don't think it will. And lack of patience, I'm not entirely sure. Listen, I get it, and the transfer windows have been disastrous, and they haven't strengthened, and I get all these things that create a kind of febrile atmosphere around the place. I get it, but there's 13 games to go and it's game on. So maybe it's a time to kind of put that stuff to one side and take each game as it comes, as Gavin would say.
I think it's important, you touched on it, Mick, a moment ago, but it's important to talk about Liel Abada. You wrote a column on it yesterday for Record Sport Online. And I don't want to blow smoke or be too sycophantic, but it was a brilliant read. If anyone's listening,
Plenty didn't. Don't worry about that.
Comments were a great read as well.
Well, it was one.
Hit the nail on the head.
It was one of the most read stories on Record Sport Online on Monday. It was shared a lot of interaction on social media. But I thought you made a really good point, Mick. You know, put yourself in Liel Abada's shoes. I know a lot of Celtic fans want this goal-scoring winger back in the squad. Rodgers saying he's not in the right frame of mind. It's difficult for any of us to even comprehend what he's going through.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to wade into the politics of the situation, right? Because I'm neither intelligent enough or educated enough or informed enough to do that. I'm just trying to think, if you're a 22-year-old lad and a long way from home, the things happening back in his homeland. Listen, it's not for anyone to pass judgment on what. I mean, listen, you can think what you like about what Israel are doing or whatever, or the situation in Gaza. It's horrific. It's just a really awkward position for the kid to be in, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, Celtic fans, let me just say, listen, I acknowledge the fact Celtic fans gave him a rousing response when he came back against Rangers, and they've been supportive of him on the pitch. But that it doesn't really matter. But if there is still kind of flags in the stands and all that stuff, and he's getting pressure put on him back home, where it could be family, friends, his national team boss. It's just a lot on the kid's shoulders, a long way from home, and I think it's a difficult one. As I said, he's lucky he's got a manager there who knows how to deal with a lot of situations. He's dealt with. I mean, he's 700 odd games as a manager. He's seen a lot. I mean, this is a guy who had to put reins on the likes of Mario Balotelli, Lee Griffiths. He deal with Luis Suarez when he's weighed biting folk left, right, and centre. So he has had to deal with problematic situations in the past. This is another one he's got having to deal with, and it's and I kind of feel for the kid. And I know people are. It's such an emotive topic, right? And I'm very, very mindful of blundering my way through the political side of this thing, right? So, and I completely get the right to have a protest, and I get all that stuff, and I'm not getting involved in all that. I'm just saying, for that kid in the middle of it, it's difficult. And getting up to produce on the football park, which is probably a kind of secondary issue. And people got the Celtic pays wages and all that stuff. Well, listen, we've all got jobs, but if things happen in your personal life and private life, the job becomes secondary. That's just the way it goes, right? Mm-hmm. That's life in general, right? And this is football, which isn't real life. It's theatre. Do you know what I mean? I just think that there might be a regret that maybe not let them go on loan in January. Might be a regret there now. Let him get a new environment away somewhere, clear his head, play games. As from a rather kind of cynical business point of view, keep his value somewhere else. You know what I mean? Again, that's away from the real life issues. I'm talking about from a business, very cynical business sense. He would retain his value somewhere else. Whereas now, I think we're getting to a stage you wonder where he goes from here now. If Rodgers can get him back, focus on football and playing, then fair play. He's a magician. If not, I don't know.
It's obviously he's here to the end of the season, Fraser. You know, obviously we know that, but it's very difficult to see him having a long-term future at Celtic beyond that.
what's he contracted to? I checked there.
It's a new deal in the summer there, no?
7, isn't it?
Yeah.
7, that's what, 3.5 years. I really rate him. Before all this happened, I thought he was one of Celtic's most dangerous players, certainly after Jota left in the summer. I remember Brendan Rodgers gave Lee Griffiths time away for football, gave him, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to go away. He said work through his problems. I don't know if something like that would be helpful here, because 22-year-old, extremely talented footballer, I couldn't agree more with what Mick's just said. Genuinely, if Mick hadn't said any of that, it's exactly what I'd be saying. Any argument like this, you need to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And my 22-year-old self in his shoes, couldn't cope with that. Nowhere near it. I'd be wanting to be back home with my family, my friends. God knows what's going through his head. So I don't know if a little 4 or 5 months off to go and do whatever he needs to do, work through things, work out his future, would be helpful. But the comments coming out of Rodgers at the weekend suggested maybe that could be the best outcome. Is if he's got 3 years left in his contract, from a football point of view, Celtic, I think, should be doing everything they can to keep him. Who knows where that part of the world will be at the start of next season. It's just a god-awful situation. Far more important than football, as Mick said. I mean, people in this part of the country take football seriously, far too seriously, some more than others. What that boy is going through right now, I can't imagine. So I don't know what the solution is, but maybe a little break from his work could be best for all parties. Yeah,
that's the politics. It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we can all have our say on what Israel are doing, right? And I'm not getting involved in it, right? But he's a young Israeli kid. I mean, listen, we've all had times in our lives when Britain's been the bad guys in some places. You know what I mean? I can imagine being abroad and your own country's getting a lot of criticism to the point of, it's almost extreme. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not getting involved, but that's an awkward position to be in, no matter even what your personal thoughts are on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It puts you in a position you think, well, I'm a long way from home here and I'm feeling a bit exposed. Mm-hmm. Some fans have tried their best to try and rally around them. I get that, but it's not just about the games. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in the news. It's everywhere. It's the people marching in the streets in Edinburgh and London. It's all this kind of stuff makes it a really. It's not just about a couple of flags at the game, right? That's not just about that. There's more to it than that. It's the difficult situation for the kid, and I say, and no matter what way you're thinking politically, it's just an awkward one. I don't know the way out of it really. I think Fraser, that's a great shout about kind of go away for a bit. But is this something going to change? This situation globally going to change the Middle East? I don't know. It's just a real tricky situation, isn't it?
No, well said, guys. I think it's probably best to end today's podcast by quickly mentioning Celtic's next fixture. Obviously, it's Kilmarnock at home. Fraser, I don't know how much you've seen of Kelly this season, but they're in great form at the minute. They're fourth in the league, in a genuine fight for third. They're unbeaten since losing to Rangers on the 2nd of January. I think this is going to be a really, really tricky game for Celtic.
Aye, God, don't have to go back that far for the warning signs about what Kilmarnock can do. An old pal of mine, when Derek McInnes was manager at Aberdeen, they just always said, and he wasn't an Aberdeen fan, he said, I love Derek McInnes. He just signs right good players to play their position, and that's why his teams are always so efficient. And I think that sums up his team at Kilmarnock right now. He's got the strongest squad Kilmarnock have had for years. He's got real difference makers, your Danny Armstrongs, your Matty Kennedys, and he's even got Marley Watkins scoring goals. So they're in great run of form. They're rightly sitting in the top 4 or 5 of the table. I slipped 5th in there, so I'm not quite sure if they're 4th or 5th. But they've got real threats. And Celtic's win at St Mirren at the weekend, I think, as Mick hinted, could be a turning point, because that was such a difficult fixture against another side that are on form. And a 2-0 win at St Mirren's never be sniffed at. So I fully expect Celtic to win this one, as will the fans. But the warning signs are there that if they're off it, if they take their eye off the ball, then Kilmarnock are well capable of taking advantage.
Do you keep Adam Ida in, Mick, do you think?
Sorry, Adam Ida. I think so. Almost I mean, the fact even kind of defensively, set pieces is handy having that height in there, because Kamara are deadly at set pieces. Are really dangerous. It's another treacherous game. These are the teams that Celtic have kind of found it hard against at home this season, because Kamara will think, well, if we sit tight and be compact and organised and make Celtic break us down, these are the games that have caused Celtic problems this season. And if Celtic don't get an early goal, it's going to be tense. There's going to be some grumpiness and all that stuff. And the longer it goes on, the harder it gets. So it's a difficult one for Celtic. First goal is absolutely key. I do think that they're showed signs that they're starting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Nicholas Kuhn is back. I don't see him maybe starting. He's not quite hit the ground running yet. He's still building his fitness. So that's an interesting one as well. But yeah, it's a tough old game. But they're all. This is a now stage. It's just chiseling your way week to week. But Kamara are going to be a tough proposition. I think they've been terrific this season. I like the guys at the back. I like Mayo, Dees, Big Finlay. I mean, I think these are guys that are eventually going to be kicking towards. I think these are going to kind of guys that are kicking towards Scotland caps. I know Finlay has been, but I think in the late 20s they're going to be in there. Good solid guys. With a goal threat, like you mentioned, Armstrong and all that stuff. Clearly, they've got Greg Stewart and Van Veen now as well. Yeah. I think they're still a bit away in terms of fitness. But if they're coming off a bench and half a chance pops their way, they're liable to put the back of the net. So it's a dangerous one for Celtic. They'll need to be at their very best again, I think, to get the result. But again, the early goal is crucial.
And whatever happens, we'll be here with all of the kind of fallout from the game. You can find it all on Record Sport online. Guys, thanks very much for joining me this week. Michael Fraser, it's always a pleasure.
Way back on the trawler.
Oh, brilliant. Voltaire there.
Who did he play for?
Kevin Van Voltaire.